Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to give you a tour of the Stata software for folks who are coming back to Stata after a long time or folks who've never worked with Stata before. This is just so that you can understand exactly what each part of the screen does, each part of the interface does, and what it's for, how it works, and things like that. Alright, so the main window here in the middle of the display that you can see is this is your results pane. So this is where anything that we ask Stata to do, this is where the output will show up. Right? So below this window is the command prompt. Right? This is just, this is the place where we can actually type in commands that we want Stata to do. So if I want to do 2 plus 2, I can enter the command display and ask it to display 2 plus 2. Hit enter, and I will see that 2 plus 2 equals 4 in my results pane. So that's probably your simplest Stata workflow right here, entering commands in the command prompt, seeing the results in the results pane. So you might notice that when I entered this command, something showed up here in the history pane. So depending on your operating system, you may or may not have the history pane visible. If not, you can see it here by going to Window and then History. But what the history pane does is it lists all of the commands that were previously executed. Right? So if I run something else, let's keep using display, 4 minus 4 equals 0. It shows that I entered display 4 minus 4 here. Right? So if I want to, say, run that command again, I can click on it, and it'll populate it down into my command prompt. Okay, so that's the history pane. Over here on the right, I have two panes that only populate when I have data loaded. So to illustrate this, let me load some data. So I could load my own data set, but the simplest thing to do for our purposes is to load one of the data sets that actually comes included with Stata. So I'm going to type sysuse auto, sysuse auto, and this loads 1978 automobile data. So it's a data set with a bunch of different makes and models of cars and different statistics about them. So in this tab, this is a list of all the variables that are in my current loaded data set. So I've got, say, the weight, length, things like this, the price of the car. And if I want to include this in a command down here, I can double click on that and have price show up. If I want to include MPG in a command, I could just double click and it will show up down here if I want to work with it. That's not important for, in most cases, but if you're working with, say, a command with a long name and you don't want to risk misspelling it, just double click on it and it will show up. This table also includes any label that goes along with the variable name. So the label describes the variable, right? So a good data set might include labels for its variables. So we work with variables, right? We work with the names. These are sort of what we include in our code. And the labels are sort of human-readable text that tell us what that set of words means. So REP78. I have no idea what that means. But apparently that refers to the 1978 repair record for the make and model of car. Okay. So that's the variables pane. Relatively simple. Down below the variables pane, we have the properties window. This is hard to see because it's currently locked, but if I, say, hit MPG for a variable and unlock it, I can see and change things here, right? So I have the name of the variable, it's MPG. If I want to change it, if I want to call it mileage, I can do that. Hit enter, and now my variable is called mileage. And you'll notice down in here, the actual command that executed, rename MPG mileage, showed up after hitting enter here. If I wanted to, I could do that wholly in the command prompt. So Now it's called mileage, so let's rename mileage back to MPG, hit enter, and now it's back to MPG, and it changed here as well. We also have the label, we have the data type, so if you look at those different data types, INT is the simplest data type. You have types that are only applicable if, say, the data can have decimals or things like that. For the most part, these don't matter to us unless we start to get into string variables. So if we look at make and model, we'll say that this is a variable called str18. This is a type of string, so it's text, it's not numbers. Okay. So once we have some data loaded, we could also look at those data in a spreadsheet if we want to. So Stata has a built-in spreadsheet program. So we have and you access it with these two buttons up here. So the button on the left is for our spreadsheet program. It's called the data editor in edit mode, and for the right this is browse mode. So browse mode is read only. It doesn't allow you to change the data. In general, I say use this most of the time, that way you don't make any unintentional changes, because once you make a change, you can't really easily undo it. Edit mode allows you to actually go into the spreadsheet and change a value, right? So let's open it in browse mode, and we see something that looks not unlike an Excel spreadsheet. It says, okay, the price of the AMC Concorde in 1978 was $4,099. So I can examine and inspect any individual observation. So my observations are the rows, my variables are the columns. Let's say I know that the AMC Concorde actually cost, say, $4,200 in 1978. I think this is wrong. I can click this button here to move over to edit mode. It'll tell me I'm about to go to edit mode and warn me that I might be making changes to my data. I hit yes. So now I can go in here and I can change that value to 4,200. X out of that. And we see that I entered a command here, right? So this command is saying it wants to replace the value of price to be 4,200 in 1. So in 1 would refer to in row 1 of the spreadsheet. Take the variable price and put 4,200 in it, right? So this is an extremely inefficient way to change values. In general, most of the time you're not going to want to manually change values in your data, but sometimes we need to, right? Sometimes we have a string that's misspelled that we want to correct, right? So we can do it in commands, or we can also just do it manually. So that's the tour of the basic interface. What do all these other things do? Well, all of these windows up here, all of these tabs up here include a whole lot of other functions. We can do things like start logging our data, or start logging our work. So we can log our data analysis. We can keep a record of everything that we do. We can do things like calculate the mean of a variable, calculate all sorts of things with the GUI, and all of these, pretty much everything in here, including open a data set, we can do with a text command down here. So for the most part, all of these functions that you can pull in the menus are one-to-one with a Stata command. So there's nothing you can do in the GUI that you can't do with code, and vice versa. Alright, so that's my introduction to the Stata interface. I will talk to everyone later.